One more round to go of the GMT tournament 2023 edition. Round 6 is over. We saw yet another change of the leadership, and now it's Vincent Kammer taking over the top spot from the Vietnamese Grandmaster Le Quang Liem. Let's have a look at some of the most interesting moments of the round 6 of the classical tournament. We're going to start with a game of Yu Yi against David Navarra. Clearly, after suffering a bad loss in round 5 against Vietnamese Grandmaster Le Quang Liem, Yu Yi was not much in the fighting move, and he decided to enter a rather dry line, something that Navarra in the post-game interview would have said that last time he checked it when he was a child. The line is pretty simple here. The only trick here that black cannot really take on d2, because after queen f6, short castle, bishop c3, rook e1, white develops a pretty strong attack. So queen f6 was played, bishop c5, queen e2, queen e7, the queens disappeared from the board, and here after bishop d3, perhaps because of the overall rankings, David felt that he has to be a little bit more ambitious, as he had a real shot to fight for the first place, and he decided to castle the other way. And now after the long castle, bishop f4 was quite precise, but the Chinese Grandmaster threatened to play bishop e5, attacking the pawn on g7, and now Navarra had to accept the darks where bishops have to be traded. It did happen, but then again, not much action was happening from here on, because after f6, white not really is interested to take on e6 and play bishop f5, because black just plays rook e8, g6, king d6, and is feeling pretty safe. Actually, it's white who needs to be careful in the rising pawn in game. So rook e3 was played, g6, king f2, bishop f7, g4. White was thinking about ideas like rook h3 to bother the pawn on h7. And that's the reason why the Czech Grandmaster included first rook e3, h5, dealing with the problem. And after g5, he closed the position at the king side and simply traded the rooks. White has a slightly better pawn structure because these black's kingside pawns are positioned on the color of his bishop, but there's no way to make a progress, and draw was agreed very quickly because this is simply a fortress that the players cannot crash through. Another game which ended in a draw was Daniel Bogdan-Diak against Arjun Erigaisi. The Romanian Grandmaster played a rather strange opening. After c4, bishop g7, he played queen a4. Anything else was better. I guess c takes on d5, knight c3 would be the more conventional way to continue. And after knight c6, maybe knight e5 was an interesting way to fight for something in the opening. But he played a rather strange and slow move d3. Short castle, bishop d2 seemed simply not right. I guess he was preparing to play c takes on d5, knight c3. And after the simple bishop d7, Erigaisi not only equalized the game, but he simply got a better position after the opening. C takes, knight c3, this happened. Knight e4, attacking the queen, take it, bishop c6, and black already is slightly better, as this is the position that usually white gets from the black's perspective. However, white was still pretty solid and not really in any danger. So after the bishop trade, knight c6, rook c8, b6, you could definitely feel that black has some space advantage and a beautiful outpost on d4. But then again, white is thinking about organizing a counterplay at the queenside with b4. So that's why here queen d7 was played, bishop e3, h5, trying to cause some discomfort for white at the kingside. Knight e4, queen b7, king retreated, and we reached this critical position where probably Arjun slightly rushed with move h4, something he should have done, absolutely, but not right now, because after h4, knight f3, he invited white to take on d4 exchange to complicate the matters. Of course, Daniel Bogdan-Diak declined, he took with the pawn on g3, and now white just solidified his position by playing b4, queen b4, king g2, and black is in no shape to use this open h-file to deliver any checkmate ideas. The heavy pieces disappeared very quickly, and although black was able to organize a passed pawn at the queen side, he simply was lacking pieces to push it any further. Knight e2, knight b3 was played very quickly, and again, we saw yet another fortress, this time from the white's perspective. After f3, as you can see, the black king can never crash through, because if it goes to a4, white simply puts the king on c2, and nothing's to be done. Draw was agreed after king f6. For Le Quang Liem, the overall ranking leader, this was a very important game because had he won this game, and of course he was also very happy to see that Navarra played a quick draw with black and Kammer had not won his game, he would already had secured the victory of the tournament. And things started to look really well for the Vietnamese Grandmaster because his opponent, the French champion Jules Massard, for the first time in his life played the Queen's Indian defense, which is a very good and solid opening, but the Frenchman was clearly lacking experience in this line. After the opening, this is quite a popular and fashionable line, rook e8, queen c2, knight e7, knight e5, the pawn on d5 is under attack. It needs to be protected by bishop b7. Rook d1, you see white is threatening bishop g5, bishop f6, solidify the center with f4, e3, maybe think about future ideas like g4, g5. This prompted black to play h6. Bishop c1, reroute the bishop on b2. Here, knight c4, common trick of the line. Bishop b4, knight e3, c6, a3, bishop f8, and knight f5. This was probably the position where the Frenchman started to go wrong because there's nothing bad about his position. But clearly, again, the experience of playing this line started to tell because he had to play some weighty moves like a5, maybe rook c8, try to gather information in which direction white wants to take this game. Instead, he played a rather strange maneuver, rook e6 and queen e8. And then after bishop h3, suddenly black started to see ghosts because the rook on e6 in some lines is attacked by the bishop. So black played c5, allowing white to play knight b5. Now that's a fork. A rook c6 has to be played, bishop f4. And here, the Frenchman started to make mistakes, which is something that he was quite unhappy about in the post-game interview. First, he suggested that queen d8 is a mistake, which is based on miscalculation, because he suggested maybe knight e4 was a better attempt, offering to sacrifice the exchange. Here, the Frenchman gave some ideas like rook c8, like g6, like c takes on d4, the pawn on a3 summers under attack, and he felt that he has a very interesting compensation. Engines agree. It's definitely a choice. So instead of this, the Frenchman played queen d8, allowing white to play knight e6, c takes on d4, attacks the queen, queen d3, and here Jules confessed he had missed the following idea because he wanted to play rook takes on d6, a spectacular idea. Now the key point is, after bishop takes on d6, he has knight c5. As you can see, the queen is under attack, the bishop attacks the bishop, bishop c5, b takes on c5, he was very happy about this position, exchange for a pawn, two bishops, a strong pawn center. This should be a very good compensation and fun to play position for the Frenchman. If white would take on d6 with the knight, here Massard had anticipated to play knight c5 with the same idea. And now the point is that after knight takes on b7, there's intermezzo move, and he had calculated knight e8, knight e1, knight retreats for white, knight goes back to c2, and he has a satisfactory game. At least he thought so. And only here, about here, he realized when he was calculating that white can actually play the stunning move e takes on d3. And the black queen on d8 is trapped. So white is simply winning material. This queen has nowhere to go. Maybe something like queen b8, give up the queen, but in the end, let's say takes, the knight on b7, let's say is trapped. b4, rook b7, rook c1, black is down in exchange, and probably simply lost. And that's the reason why he had to change his strategy. He realized this idea doesn't work. So he had to take on d6 and play knight c5. But now the key difference here is that after knight b7, black no longer can take on d3 because of the knight e8, and the black rook on c6 is hanging. So after knight b7, queen d4, the Frenchman was up for a long suffering in this position. But he managed to hold well. He was putting up quite a fierce resistance, and he chose the right strategy, which is to give up the pawn on d5. So he managed to activate his pieces. And here it was quite difficult for the Vietnamese Grandmaster to find the right way to crash through. He spent some time trying to improve his position, offered a queen trade, which was rejected by the Frenchman. This probably was one of the best positions that white had, having clearly a better position and an extra pawn. But still the question is how to crash through. About here, the Vietnamese Grandmaster started to lose control of the game. Not really sure what he should have played because black still has some counterplay at the king side. He played a4, queen a3, and this could be an accuracy, rook c3, because after queen b4, white could not play rook c4 because of queen e1 check, and also rook e4 or rook e5 could be a move at some point. Most likely rook e4 attacking the pawn on a4. So here, rook c2 was played, rook e4 attacks the pawn on a4, and suddenly black is back in business. Queen b5, take it, rook b4, b6, knight e5, and the pawn on b6 is falling. So the Vietnamese grandmaster tried another trick. He entered this endgame willingly. He gave up the pawn, but he was relying on his piece activity, rook f8, and now the Frenchman found a beautiful defense. He played rook b7, g4, and knight b6, giving up the pawn. After the trade, rook f7, he positioned his rook behind the pawn, pushed it forward, and because of his active rook and passive white rook, white cannot really hope for any progress. To the Vietnamese grandmaster's credit, I have to admit that he did absolutely the best he could have done. He found a very interesting way to rearrange his pieces by putting the king on b3, rook on f2, king on a2, rook on h2, but these pawns are weak, and without the king, they're not moving forward. White got his dream set up by two connected passed pawns at the king side, but without a king, he simply cannot make a progress, and draw was agreed. Finally, the most critical game of the round, Vincent Keimer playing against Amin Bassem. For the German grandmaster, this was the perfect opportunity to try to catch the leader, because before round 6, Keimer was 2 points behind the Vietnamese grandmaster, who was having this great position after the opening against Jules Massard. So he surprised his opponent with knight b to d2, rather rare choice, threatening to play e4. Black can play d5, of course. After d5, white normally plays e3, bishop here, and something like b4, bishop b to c4, with a very interesting setup. Black play bishop g7, e4, d6, we have some sort of a Pirtz defense. Bishop b5 check, interesting intermezzo check, provoking black to play c6. And here, bishop c4, a move which has never been played at highest level. Bishop d3 by far is the most played move. And bishop c4 basically jumps into d5. And yet, Keimer's opening prep says this is good for white. Castle was played, d5 was played, e takes, c takes, and bishop b3. So we reach some sort of exchange Caro-Kann, although normally white has the bishop on d3 or e2 in these positions. And you could definitely tell that Amin Bassem was having some issues in this position, because although he got a good position after the opening, he just did not feel the nuances. Pretty much like the Frenchman Jules Massard was having the same issues against the Vietnamese grandmaster Le Quang Liem. So queen c7 was played, knight f1, rook d8, knight g3, and from here on, things started to go terribly wrong for the Egyptian grandmaster. I mean, he could have played e6, he could have played a6, b5, b4, the typical idea for black. Instead, he chose a dubious idea. He played bishop c8 and e6, something he would have regretted later. So after h3, a smart winning move, because white is thinking in some future moments to play knight f1, knight h2, knight g4, knight a5. Again, not another great move by the Egyptian grandmaster. Knight e5, knight e7, knight e3. And now with the naked eye, you can immediately sense that white is simply better because of better position pieces, and black is suffering because of the light square bishop on c8. Knight b3 was traded. Another inaccuracy by the Egyptian grandmaster. His position was deteriorating by every single move. Bishop f4, queen b6, rook a3. Some immediate threats here. Here, the Egyptian grandmaster decided to change the course of the game. After rook e8, rook a1, he decided to sacrifice the pawn, because clearly the game is going the wrong way. D takes on e5, d4 was played, so black was trying to open up the position for his bishops. Rook a5, takes, queen b3. However, white continued to play very active, so he had here an extra pawn and beautifully positioned pieces. The black bishop on c8 is simply out of the game. The d6 square is a very nice outpost for the white knight. So in a simple language, white is strategically winning. However, things were not yet over. h6, knight e6, rook e7, c4. Keimer was trying to trap the queen. After knight f8, queen d2, bishop f5. Here, the German star found knight c5, forcing the queen trade. It happened, and he won the second pawn. And after rook b8, one would have thought that white is simply cruising to a victory here, having two extra pawns and space advantage and simply better positioned pieces. But here, the young German became not accurate and started to commit mistakes. So rook c1 was still a good move, knight e6, and bishop g3. This is the move we criticized during the live commentary, and also Vincent, after the game, he immediately said that was a bad choice because the bishop on g3 is simply disconnected from the game, and this is something that he could never take back later. The right move was bishop e3, with the idea that after bishop f5, what keeps the idea is to play g4, trap the bishop. Now, Vincent after the game said he was concerned about bishop b3, which looks strange as it should be trapped, but he did not see a clear way how exactly to do it. I mean, there's a number of ways how white can continue. Engine suggests to play c5, c6. Perhaps f4 is also a bit more human to protect the pawn on e5. And if black takes away these two knights on b7, rook b5, takes, bishop d5, b6, and white is probably winning. But then again, if you look at this position more closely, it's not so obvious immediately how white is advancing this b pawn. Perhaps rook a1, rook a7, and b6, b7. Either way, it's difficult to give away two minor pieces for the rook just like that. And that's probably also the reason why Keimer played bishop g3, knight e4. The fork on e2 is threatening here, bishop f5, rook d1, knight e2. And now the German player found an interesting way to simplify the position, which perhaps was not such a good idea, really, because he could have played also knight x on f5, g takes, and then play knight e6. Keep more pieces on the board. Knight e8 was chosen, knight f5, nice trick. So the position simplified to the following position. King h7, knight c8, another inaccuracy by the German. Knight c6 was necessary to bring the knight closer, protect the pawn here on e5, and white would be simply up 2 pawns for no compensation and probably slowly but winning position. And now suddenly things became quite tricky. So after knight g3, rook d3, f3, g5, Keimer could not find the right way to convert this game. So the time trouble was over. He made one inaccuracy after another, and suddenly he could not defend this second extra pawn on e5. So he decided to give it up, activate the king, bishop c7, king d4 cannot be played, and we just let's just move forward to the second critical moment of the game where white has an extra pawn, but black is pretty active for the king side. So clearly black will have to give up the bishop for the pawn here on c7, take as many pawns he can at the king side, and hope that this is going to be enough for him to hold the game. Exactly like this was played out in the game. Bassem won the pawn on g2, rook c6, f6, king e6, g4 was a rush choice by the Egyptian grandmaster, and had he played rook a2, rook a1, and just waited for white to show where exactly lies his winning technique, it would be very difficult for the German player to win the game. For example, rook a2, king e7, and rook a7 check. Just go back, rook a2, rook a1, attack these pawns on h3 at some point, and then when the timing is right, think about the idea to play g5, g4. Instead, Bassem rushed with g4. The idea is very interesting to activate the king, but this was simply too early. After h takes on g4, black has a very strong pass pawn, but the German was very accurate. So there was nothing to be done. Very precise move, king f7, rook h3, king e3, knight f5 here, and there was a couple of wins already for white. Knight h4 was simplest of them. Knight h4, rook g1, this is what we saw during the live commentary. King f3, and very, very nice move, knight e3. King e3, king f6, white wins the game. And also, king f6, of course, is winning the game because white gives up the rook, advances the g-pawn, followed by f4, f5, knight g6, and this pawn is unstoppable, and Keimer would win the game. These are the results of round 6. As you can see, Le Quang Lim against Jules Massard, Daniel Bogdan Diak against Arjun Rigaisi, and Yu Yanyi against David Namara. They split points. And Vincent Keimer was the only one who scored a victory, a very, very important victory over Amin Bassem, because in the overall rankings, it's Vincent Keimer who now is leading the tournament. 1 round to go, 13.5 points ahead of Le Quang Lim by half a point. David Navarra is also within contention with 29 points, and in the final round we're going to see incredible matchups. Navarra faces with white Le Quang Lim, and Vincent Keimer plays with black against Arjun Rigaisi. So this is going to bring some very, very exciting action in the final round, which starts today at 2 p.m. Central European Summer Time. Don't miss it and find out who of these three players is going to become the champion of the 2023 edition. Greetings, dear viewers. Today is a great day here in Biel, Switzerland, because today is the day when we are going to see the final round of the 2023 GMT tournament. I think that big drama most likely awaits us because the results are quite difficult to predict. There are potential three winners who might become victorious at the end of this gigantic long-distance Grandmaster Triathlon. Anyway, what awaits us, we'll see. Your hosts are, as usual, Angelika Volkova. I'm Grandmaster Artur Nekšans, and we are here to make your following of the Grandmaster Triathlon a little bit more exciting.
This is exciting not to know for sure how this event will end, but we know for sure there are going to be top three players who will be in the podium, but we don't know how it's going to happen, who will be first, who will be second, third. Any scenario is possible today. It's going to be exciting.
That's right, and let's immediately then jump to the pairings and rankings, because here you see it's the German star Vincent Keimer, who, thanks to his incredible performance with the white collar here in the classical tournament, he is leading the tournament overall rankings with 30.5 points. But nothing is certain, because last year's winner, the Vietnamese Grandmaster Quang Liem, trails him only by half a point. and David Navarra is behind with 29. Again, it's very important to remind you, dear viewers, that the victory in the classical tournament is rewarded by 4 points, while draw is only 1.5 points, and that's why we might have 3 potential winners of the overall tournament rankings.
And here we have the pairings of the last final round. We can see we have David Navarra against Le Quang Liam. Very, very important match because 2 players potentially could win the Grandmaster Triathlon. Bassa Amin against Yu Yanyi. Still, it's going to be an important fight for the players for the rankings. Arjun Erigaisi against Vincent Keimer. Vincent, with the black pieces, will try to play pretty ambitiously to maybe start and claim the victory of the GMT tournament. Jules Mussard against Bogdan Daniel Diak. We are also going to see what's happening in that game.
So to tell you what are the potential scenarios today, let's go back to the rankings and explain you. Here they are. So Keimer today plays the black against Erigaisi. If he wins, scenario number 1, he automatically becomes the champion of 2023 Biel Chess Festival GMT tournament. If he draws, this is scenario number 2, then for Keimer, in order to become the champion, he also needs a draw in Le Quang Liam's game versus David Navarra. And finally, we have scenario number 3. If Vincent Keimer draws or loses, and one of the game, and this game between Navarra and Le Quang Liam ends with a decisive result, this means the player of that game becomes the winner of the tournament.
Absolutely, so many incredible scenarios we have here for today. I love that it's unpredictable. I love that we are going to have a lot of action here. Players most likely also are going to follow each other's game, to see where is it going, or if, for example, draw could be enough or not, but players know the draw might be not enough for the victory.
That's right. So again, action is going to start in a moment, and while the games are still about to begin, I think it's a good idea also for us to have a look at who is exactly playing the GMT tournament, because it's not only these 3 players, there's 5 other household names here in Biel. Of course, Yu Yanyi, the high-seeded player on the field, the very strong grandmaster from China. A rather disappointing end of the tournament so far for him. Like Quang Liam, last year's winner of the triathlon, who is now directly competing for the win in the tournament. Again, this would mark his 2nd victory in a row if he succeeds this. Arjun Erigaisi, Daniel Bogdan Diak, Vincent Keimer, Amin Bassem, David Navarra, Jules Mussard. Together, they form a formidable team of players whose average rating is 1 point shy of 27 Kangri-Ilo.
Absolutely, and we have to remind you the Grandmaster Triathlon format. Of course, today we have the last game, the last round, the game number 28, or if we count the Chess 960, the game number 35. We had altogether 3 sets of the tournament. We had the classical one, today is the last game. We had the rapid with the 7 games, and we had also Blitz with 2 games, with 2 round robins, 14 games altogether.
That's the scoring system, as we already explained to you. The classical tournament is so important for everybody because it's 4 points for the win. Draw, probably for the overall strategy, is not so good because it's only 1.5 points. And that's the time control we can expect today. So far, the games have been quite lengthy, sometimes going up to 7 hours. You see 2 hours for first 40 moves, then another hour, then extra 15 minutes after that. But there's a potential for a time trouble because additional time of plus 30 seconds is given after only move 60.
And here is our total prize fund with 28,500 Swiss francs. Incredible prize fund, with the first place getting 10,000 Swiss francs. And we see that there are only places till top 5 players. So that's why place number 7 and 8 not going to get any prize.
So let's go to the games. I do see already the first moves are being played. And Angelica, my suggestion is that we are going to start with the game of David Navarra against Le Quang Liam, because that's probably the most critical game. For Vincent, playing with black against Erigaisi, not sure really what to expect because technically Eric Geise is not really fighting for the top 3, but he can climb higher, much higher in the rankings if he manages to win this. And he's a very ambitious player. And when asked yesterday, when we asked Okaimer, what do you expect from tomorrow's game? He said, I mean, Arjun is a big fighter. So naturally, it's going to be a big game.
Absolutely, and also he has black pieces in the game. And if we look at their score against each other, it's actually Arjun who is leading against Vincent Keimer. So that's why anything can happen today, and Vincent has to be indeed very careful.
So what do we have here? We are going to have a hard time to choose between these two games, Keimer against Erigaisi or Navarre against Wang Liem. But let's start with the first game. And oh, look at that! Actually, it has the official title Neo-Catalan. I thought I invented it, because what's a Catalan? Obviously, Catalan is one of the most respectable and oldest systems here. After D5, G3, Black has number of choices. He can play bishop b4 check. He can play bishop b7. He can play d takes on c4. Number of choices. Anyway, so that's the big theory here. Sometimes white starts with c4, e6, g3. And I would call it myself Neo-Catalan. I'm a bit surprised, actually, it's called exactly like that. So after d5, bishop g2, the trick is white is not playing d4. And there are some nuances. For example, after knight f6, knight f3, Black doesn't have this bishop b4 check anymore, because sometimes with d4 included, bishop b4 check, bishop d2, this bishop on d2, as we already saw in some of the games here in Biel, not always is perfectly positioned. So white is pretty smart by delaying this move, but of course, every single decision has its pros and cons. And here, Angelika, I do believe that Black also can play d4.
Yeah, indeed, it's possible to grab the center. That looks very, very logical. And that's one of the downsides, not playing d4. But of course, there are also many upsides. As we see in the game, Wang Liem didn't play it. He rather took.
Yeah, he took on c4. Again, I don't think it's really a surprise to him, because this line is quite popular. Queen a4. Bishop d7. Okay, this is something I can quite relate to, because I played many games here with white. The traditional response here for Black is knight e7, queen c4, a6. And quite typical for the Catalan positions, Black always is dreaming about b5, bishop b7. Because those of you who have played a Catalan, you might know that this bishop on c8 is the so-called problem child for Black. So if you would remove the bishops, Black is simply having a good game. And that's why white here plays moves like queen b3 or queen c2 to retreat from this b5 move, and Black cannot really do it immediately, because you need to watch out for moves like knight e5 or knight e4, and rook on a8 is immediately bothered. But anyway, bishop d7, queen takes on c4, Black lays c5, he immediately tries to solve the problem of the bishop. Knight e5, of course. I mean, white opens the long diagonal, attacking the pawn on b7, and queen c8. And I'm really curious, Angelika, are we going to see queen d3 here? Because queen d3, I remember this. What was it? It was something like, how many years ago? Let me try to remember. 4 or 5 years ago. I think the first one to play this move was Alexander Grishuk. Maybe my memory is a bit hazy, but pretty sure that was Grishuk who played this move. Or somebody played against Grishuk, but I'm pretty sure he was playing with white. And the idea is to get this endgame where white has a strong bishop on g2 and somehow capitalize on this. And back then, it was a new idea, new move. And if you'd open chess space, nobody will play queen d3. Everybody will play something else. I think the more popular moves were something like castle or knight c3. I already don't remember. And now, a couple of years later, I would open ChessBase, this professional software for chess professionals mostly, and check what's the most popular move here, and guess what it is?
Queen d3?
Queen d3. Yeah, I mean, ever since queen d3 has become the top move, and we have a confirmation to check. Thank you, Grishuk Wojtaszek 2016. Okay, actually it's more. It's 7 years. So yeah, I remember this was Grishuk's idea, and I also have played this a couple of times with white, scoring some very good results. And now I think that David is either trying to recall what happens after queen d3, or, choosing something else.
Yeah, indeed. Maybe he's choosing something else, but for sure he's familiar. He was preparing to play this. He is familiar with this move's ideas. So if not queen d3, then just castle, right? It's,
Castle or b3 or knight c3. These moves more or less look the same. Maybe not really castle, because, for example, if I could show you a little bit further, let's say queen d3, knight c6, or let's say black is inaccurate and trades queens. This is actually not very accurate. So black and the queens are traded, and white sometimes plays e3, king e2. So we get some sort of a hedgehog position. e3, king e2, d3, not sure, knight c3, and then try to gain space advantage at the king side with f4, g4, g5, etc. And the king belongs on e2, and that's why the short castle is not played, and Navarra instead goes for knight c3.
Okay, so he's not playing this queen d3 trendy move. Knight c3 instead displayed, knight c6, and now the question is to the knight, what to do? I mean, you have to take the bishop, right?
Yeah, otherwise the entire idea of knight e5 is simply useless, right? I mean, if you play knight c6, bishop c6, bishop c6, queen c6, it just makes absolutely no sense, and it would be almost like what happened yesterday in Daniel Bogdandiak's game against Arjun Rigaisi. He got more or less the same position with white, which was not great, but okay, he managed to hold the draw.
So that's why David Navarra is taking on d7, that bishop, queen takes, very logical, of course, because now there is no queen on d3. You can take with a queen. This queen trade is not possible for now. And now the question is, how do you continue? I mean, the castle is possible.
Yeah, maybe, if I may,
yes,
I would go back here and still explain, which perhaps I did not explain, why even this queen d3 at all. I mean, why? Because why don't you play knight c3, knight c6, and it's exactly like Navarra? So the idea is that after queen d3, as I already said, the queen trade is not good because white can keep the king in the center. And after knight takes on d7, here white has some annoying moves, like I think it was queen b5. Threatening immediately with bishop c6, double the pawn structure, a6, queen a4, b5, queen d1, and then somehow this bishop becomes stronger and stronger. So that's why this queen d3 was discovered. But anyway, I think that from the point of view of strategy, I mean, knight c3 looks pretty much the same.
Maybe he didn't want to trade the queens. Maybe that was the point.
I think he would love to trade the queens. But, okay, we can always ask David after the game whatever he thought about this, because Navarra has been very forthcoming about joining the interviews here, and I have to really thank personally, basically, to every grandmaster here in the GMT tournament who always find time, because I remember last year we had sometimes some trouble getting certain players, and they would sometimes even escape us, go in circle to avoid us and escape to the hotel. Of course, I mean, they're playing here with this very tough tournament. An interview extracts energy, but I think it's also very nice for the viewers to hear directly from the players what was their thought process.
But for example, yesterday, let's recall how we had Jules Moussard joining our stream. Basically, the last game to finish almost, how long did he play? Almost 7 hours.
7 hours.
Yeah, 7 hours, and he still joined. The commentary said, I want to show this line, I want to show this line. And he didn't disappoint us, right? Because he showed this very nice line with a potential queen trap and what he missed. And I mean,
it was amazing. It was an amazing idea. I included it in the recap because if he had not said that interview, I would never pick it up, to be honest, right? I would just say he made some mistakes, but in this recap, in case you watched, he explained, of course, exactly the reasoning why he went there. He miscalculated, he missed this beautiful idea, and then he had to suffer, but he managed to hold the draw.
It was absolutely unbelievable that queen was trapped in the center of the board, basically in its own lager, so it's its own, but okay. So yeah, it's really, really nice this year to have so many people, so many players willing to join, willing to share their ideas, and we hope you enjoy it. We hope you love this insight from the player.
So what do we have here? A4. Liam is thinking, I cannot immediately recall any games here. I mean, probably somebody has played this, but now that I look at this, it feels like a fresh idea. And I can only assume that White's idea is to play a5, a6, which makes sense. Otherwise, white weakens the b4 square for no good reason. And I don't think that black was thinking about a6, b5. So you don't want to open this long diagonal for the white's bishop for no good reason. So a5, a6, this has got to be some new idea. And how do you counter it?
And he's not countering for now. Maybe he wants to play a6 after a5. So like a5 and then to stop it with a6. But then there is knight a4, yeah? And b6 square is weak.
Let's say a5, a6, and indeed, knight a4.
Knight a4, knight a5, and queen c3, yeah? Something.
Yeah, knight a5, this queen is under attack, and here.
And we have big threat, no?
So I have to play queen c7, and there could be stuff like b4. Wait a second. This feels like a prep. I mean, okay, maybe it's not really forced, you know?
Yes.
After knight a5, queen c3, okay, maybe black can play.
Queen d8.
Queen d8, but I take the pawn on
c5.
c5. Oh, there's a fork, of course, on b3. Take. Oh, wait.
We can take with the rook. Yeah, with the rook.
I just take with a5. You're right. Rook a5. I want the center. I have two bishops. I should be better.
b6 is not possible.
Yeah.
So
because the rook is hanging, and okay, let's say bishop b6 and just whatever. Rook a4. No, this is a beautiful position. If you get this.
Yeah, this is like a wonderful position. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so a5 could be a move. I mean, you don't play it out randomly. After bishop e7, I think that Navarra definitely should have expected this move because there's no more logical move than this.
And I see that Navarra is actually looking at the side of the board. He's looking at the queen side. So.
Of course, I mean, you say A, you gotta say B as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, maybe black allows this. He plays castle. A6, B6. Okay, maybe a6 is not necessary to jump immediately, but I think it does make sense. And now we could play this position. So white has an outpost on b5 for the knight. This bishop is now slightly stronger and can always support the pawn on a6 with bishop b7. I think we are going to get our answer very quickly.
a5 is on the board. Indeed. So David said A, he said B. So.
And he's ready to say C as well if necessary. So. I would put my money on short castle, unless, of course, this is a known line, which I haven't seen it really. So let's say a6, knight a4. I mean, if you are playing this with black and you're not really within the prep, you gotta feel this is some deep prep. You see ideas like this, like b4 at some point, and you just don't want to test your opponent's preparation. So that's why short castle, allowing a6. Looks pretty human to me.
Absolutely. That's.
Maybe there's even more moves. You know, after the short castle, there could be something like queen b5. Threatening with bishop c6, ruining the pawn structure, now threatening a6, provoking black to play a6, and then play back. You know, we have seen weirder things here in Biel, right? Remember, Angelika, Navarra's game against Bassa, bishop g5, bishop c1, two tempi just like that. So why not also queen b5, queen c4? I could easily see it happen because it weakens the b6 square, let's say here, and the pawn on c5 now sort of loses support.
And just recalling how yesterday David joined us for the analysis of his game and also shortly for the commentary over other games. And he said that, yes, tomorrow there will be some action. He didn't, of course, show his cards about his preparation, but he said that he will try tomorrow. He will try. And that's what he's doing right now.
He has to. I mean, we expect nothing less from the Czech gentleman because so far in Biel, Navarra has shown very exciting chess. I mean, his games are stunning. The game against Amin Basemin in chess 960. In the rapid tournament, where was this craziness?
Against Le Quang Liam, the sacrifice of the queen.
Craziness against Arjunari Gaisi here. I mean, against Vincent Keimer a couple of rounds ago. I mean, every single game here is leading to some excitement. And that's why also I think we can expect nothing less here. David enjoys the tournament. He's in good shape, but so is his opponent because, I mean, Le Quang Liam, he made only the first draw yesterday in the classical tournament. He had scored 4 victories out of 5 in the classical tournament, and he was very close to win the game yesterday against Jules Moussard. But it was the Frenchman who was putting up very resilient defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And
All right. I think we simply have to check the other game,
yeah,
Angelica, right?
we have to.
So here, the Vietnamese grandmaster is thinking about his choices. H6, castle. I think he's going to play castle. But let's move on. Arjner Geisy, Vincent Keimer. That's the game we want to see.
Yes, that's the second game. And we have 2 games we are going to follow mostly. Of course, we will follow the other games as well, but these are the games which are important for the leadership of the tournament. And we have, already so many moves made. Okay.
Okay, what is
going
even
on?
happening here? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Everything is equal. Some marshal, anti-marshal. What's this? Okay, how did we get here? Okay, yeah, Winston likes marshal. Rook e1, b5 here, shoot castle. Being coached by just legend Petr Leko, I mean, he has definitely picked up some of his coaches' amazing analytical skills and also the positional finesse. And nobody really wants to test him with his d5 because when was this? Navarra played against Winston a4. So that's another way to escape from the marshal line, which usually is d5, e takes knight e5 and sacrifice the pawn on e5, and in the game follow b4, d3, and then d5 doesn't really look so great anymore.
Yes.
For some reason, I'm not really sure why. But h3 is another smart way how white is trying to avoid the marshal, but I think that black can still do this, and if my memory is not completely wrong, I think it was the first game of the World Championship match, first World Championship match, Magnus, they just played one match really. I mean, Magnus Carlsen against Jan Nepomniachtchi. I mean, Nepomniachtchi played 2 matches and lost both of them. I think it was d5, take it, or was it later? This d5, take it, I don't remember. I think it was something like knight a5. But I don't remember. He gave up this pawn on e5 and it was a dynamic draw. Anyway, bishop b7 is played, d3, d5. I mean, it was exactly like this, you know? d3, d5, take it, and the black insists on giving up the pawn, and white says no.
White is saying no, and...
Because this is the key idea. Yeah, I think it was like this in the game. So give up the bishop, play bishop d6, queen h4, f5, f4, etc.
Yeah.
It's very easy to play for black.
Arjun didn't want to allow this activity of the black pieces, so he plays knight bd2, and we have knight bd2, queen d7 was played. Okay, so some preparation for bringing the queen into the position. Yeah, knight f5, knight f4, very nice outpost for the knight.
Knight e4, white wants to take on e5, then take on f4. Knight g6. Whoa. Okay, this is definitely deep prep from both players. h4, h5, h6, perhaps. I think they're just following a certain game. I cannot immediately tell which one. Queen g4, attacking the pawn, stopping h5. Bishop g5, takes. Rook d8, takes, include the rook in the game. g3 stopping any knight f4. Knight h4 ideas, this part makes sense. Bishop c8 and knight e2. That's what we have here.
So the offer of the trade of the queens right now from Arjun, of course, white wants to trade the queens because there are some, rainy clouds near the king, which he wants to avoid. So I guess we should expect from Vincent some retreat of the queen, right?
You're right. I get the word that Vincent already played this in the tournament, but for some reason I don't recall. Was this a game he played against Jules Moussard? I can't immediately remember because we sort of followed all the games. For me, this looks something I have never seen really, but I'm gonna trust my dear viewers here because they played together a lot of games. Maybe it was the Blitz game, Raptor game. I cannot immediately recall. Okay, okay. So indeed, it seems that both players are repeating the game, and there's a new move. I guess H4. This is what they were playing in that game. So talk about the highest level of chess here, right? So these players, they are following what their opponents are playing here in Biel. And imagine yourself, you are Eric Geisy, and you see you are one of the most important opponents. Vincent Kammer plays this interesting idea in, let's say, Blitz or Rapid. You immediately want to prepare for this because there's a certain possibility that you might get it against him at some point later. And that's what I think we're seeing here. Knight e2, queen h3.
Queen
black,
h3, logical.
yeah, black declines the queen trade. Again, I think actually queen trade does make sense. I mean, queen takes, and something like knight e4. Looks logical to me because black wants to kill the bishop, although, I mean, white has a very powerful rook on the a file, and I guess that's the reason why he decided not to go there.
Absolutely.
c3. Now he sacrifices the pawn on d3, taking away the d4 and b4 squares for the knight. But of course, the obvious question, which I already see in the chat, what about the pawn on d3? Indeed, what about it? I assume there's some queen e2, queen b5 ideas. Okay, if I attack the rook. Wait, but it's very tricky because I see all kinds of ghosts here.
Yeah, like there could be some even knight f4 or something like this.
Knight f4, knight h4 with bishop g4.
Yes, that's what I'm also looking at.
That's my intuition. Immediately will tell him there might be something here. Of course, I mean, black just could retreat.
Or play rook fd8. I mean, it's also possible, but there is like this knight jump and bishop g4 ideas, yeah?
Can we try to brainstorm here for a moment? Okay, if I play knight h4.
But I think now just queen this. Oh, yeah, takes.
Now the rook
Bishop.
is protected.
Bishop g4, queen f1.
And nothing, yeah?
Yeah, queen h4 and queen g2.
Although I do see some idea. Oh, wait, you just take the rook, of course.
Yeah, you take the rook.
Okay,
yeah.
not like that. All right, queen, what was this? Rook d3, queen e2, knight f4 also looks interesting. Take and take with knight e5 ideas. But again, I think white just plays something like f3, queen g2, and probably he is all right. Probably. I mean, again, I'm guessing really here. So once again, the rook d3, queen e2, okay, not knight h4, not knight f4.
Just safe move, maybe rook f8.
I really want to sacrifice.
You want to sacrifice.
I really want to
Okay.
sacrifice. You know, it's not my game. I haven't sacrificed anything today. So here,
Knight f4, bishop queen f1.
yeah, there's queen f1.
Yeah.
Okay. I had to make sure, so it does work. So after rook d3, queen e2, I guess black plays something like rook d8. Maybe now after bishop c2, there could be ideas like these. With bishop g4, f3, rook d2, knight e2, queen g3. I mean, look at that. There's definitely room for some excitement here. I mean, the point is the king is weak, and if you play here, takes, rook d2, rook c2, two minor pieces for the rook, etc. So, okay, once again, rook d3, big move for Keimer. Here, what do you do? Here. Bishop c2. I mean, bishop g4 looks tempting. And if I take on d3 the queen, takes, I'm still dreaming for some mate ideas here. But maybe there's nothing.
Yeah, if knight f4, there is bishop f1.
Still nothing. Okay, maybe not like that. Tough to say. I mean, of course, black doesn't have to rush with these bishop g4, knight h4 ideas, knight f4 ideas. It just looks so tempting.
Yeah, it looks very, very tempting.
Of course, he can just retreat with the rook, like rook d5. How does white continue here? Bishop b3, go back, draw? Probably not. You know, I don't know. It's very difficult from a human's perspective to explain engine analysis because this is clearly engine preparation. And rook d3 looks very logical to me. I mean, this is definitely something the camera is looking at right now. So he is going to spend some time here, try to figure out, does he want to pick up the most principled move or try to divert and play something which makes a bit more sense. But here's the trick. Very often, when high-level players have prepared ideas like these, often there's just one very good continuation. And this very good continuation is the most principled continuation. So if your opponent doesn't gather the courage to go for the most principled choice, he simply lands up in the worst position. That's very often like this. So that's why rook d3, this is something that Kammer is not going to discard easily. Of course, he might be scared a little bit, you know, because he doesn't know this line for sure, and apparently Kammer does. Not Kammer, but every guy he does. But it might be also the principal choice here.
And we still see Arjun Erigaisi in his confident pose. He says, do you want to take that pawn? Do you want to try?
He always is like this.
He always is like this. This is...
I mean, I already suggested to Arjun, you should be playing poker, right? He smiled. I mean, we had this discussion in the excursion. I said, Arjun, I can't read your body language because you're always sitting the same. He was very happy about it.
I mean, only on the rest day he's smiling and showing emotions, but during the game, there is nothing.
Yeah. All right. So maybe I should zoom out so that we get camera in the camera.
Okay, so...
Okay, from the human perspective, rook takes on d3, you decide, that's what I don't want to do. What else?
Bishop g4.
Sure. Bishop g4 looks like very logical move. White plays f3. I guess so. Otherwise, queen c2 is like you're going the other way. It doesn't really make any sense. So bishop g4 makes perfect sense. Pinning the knight on f3 makes no sense at all. So f3.
The question here, if there is rook d3, is the idea
Very
rook
big
g3.
Very big question. Now, white has a number of moves here. White can take on g4, and white can play queen e2. Who knows what's the best move? I cannot tell immediately, at least. So let's say we decide to take. Maybe there's a draw. Takes, takes, takes here, and some perpetual. Knight f4 queen
Knight
f3.
f4, queen f3, yeah.
Yeah, you can't allow this. And maybe king e2 is too much, and you know this game could somehow finish in a draw. Check, 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 check. But of course, it's not really so simple, because first, you have to calculate this very precisely. And second, after such a responsible move as rook d3, there's also queen e2. Intermezzo move, attacking the rook. And again, black needs to show something very, very quick. Otherwise, now f takes on g4 might be a move. Queen d3 is a move. There's a lot of moves. There's knight f4 move. Again, complicating the line. There's rook d8 move. For example, rook d8, f takes on g4. And again, think about ideas like, I'm not sure. I mean, is this even working?
Because now there is a queen and there will be always queen g2, yeah?
Take, take, here. Queen g2, take, take. Here, king g3, down an exchange for what? A couple of pawns. But the bishop is very active, rook is very active, rook is very active. And the knights are not very good. This knight is not very good.
Yeah, but 3 pawns, yeah? So you can take on...
2 pawns. I calculated 2.
2 pawns.
Yeah, bishop g4, big decision. Rook d3, big decision. Okay, what's the practical choice then? Because bishop g4, f3, maybe you provoke a weakness and play bishop e6. Maybe that's human. But do you want to include f3 for white?
Or bishop f5. Idea is that you don't want to trade the bishops.
Yeah, but I think this bishop looks very annoying to you, no? I mean, maybe not, I don't know. Bishop f5? Okay, maybe, I'm not going to argue, you know? Maybe bishop f5 also is a move. And then white plays something like queen e2. Maybe even is very creative. King f2. Queen h2, king e3.
It's too creative, I think. Wait, there's...
I don't believe this myself,
this is
you know? It asks for some trouble.
too much.
Okay. Of course, this is never going to happen. That would be a funny mate on the board, but...
Yes.
This is not good news for Winston.
And if we look at the time, we see clearly Arjun is still in his position. He's still in his preparation. He spent almost 10 minutes for the whole game. And Vincent is spending half an hour already, so...
I mean, it could be also the other way. Maybe Vincent knows all of this. Maybe he knows this is a forced draw. We don't know that, right? Maybe he knows, okay, c3 in my files, it's a theoretical draw, and he remembers how it was possible to achieve, but perhaps for the tournament situation, the draw doesn't work. Because he wants to win the tournament. It also could be this scenario that he is really well in the prep still, and he knows the move c3, and that's why he does not want to go for some forced lines. I don't think so, really, but it could be possible.
Anything is possible. Absolutely, anything is possible, and again, any other moves? Yes, I mean, like, looks very rich position on the moves, like...
You need some human move again. Bishop g4 looks human, rook d3 looks tempting. h6, try to kill this annoying pawn so that you can play f5.
But you cannot play f5 because you have king, yeah?
Of course, I mean, here, f5 could be too much. h6 also could be a move to consider. Maybe it's also human. Unless I play something like queen f3, indirectly attacking the knight, and h takes on g5 doesn't look very good. You see all kinds of big ideas here. With bishop f7, I guess the execution could be better, but you get the point. Yeah. So knight g5, fork, the queen on h3 is under attack, but of course, I think that white could just take on g5 immediately. There's too many things under attack. I don't think this is a good idea.
Maybe knights, not now, but in the original position, maybe knight c to e7 could be a move. Not here, but in the original, so from...
Here? With what idea?
Knight f5, just to bring the piece to the attack.
Could be. You know, it could be. Easily also knight e7. Doesn't look right to me, but I'm not going to argue, really, right? There's many moves. Perhaps bishop e7 is the most human I can think of. But again, Bar doesn't like
maybe bishop g4 and bishop e6. So first bishop g4.
I don't know. I mean, do you need to include this move f3 or not? That's the question. I don't understand. So bishop e6 makes perfect sense if you don't want to go for the direct lines from bishop g4 and sacrifices and everything. But is this a good addition or it's not a good addition? Because, wait, look at this idea, Angelica. Bishop g4, f3, bishop e6. There's also this idea. And is this queen trapped? Maybe not. I mean, okay, you could take on b3
There
and
is
escape
always,
the queen.
yeah.
But there could be some problems at h file. Maybe it's better to keep the pawn on f2. So by playing f3, white has the idea to put the rook on h2. By keeping the pawn on f2, the pawn on g3 is better protected. Go figure which is the right continuation. I think that Keimer has been tricked. At least in the opening phase. It doesn't mean much. The game is still very rich with possibilities, but the Indian player impresses me really here with his knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we have 2 more games we have to check.
I just briefly checked. I think it was a blitz game against Jules Moussard. I think I found this game where it was played, and on move...
Here, h4?
I mean, h4 was not played, but it was bishop... so it was first trade on b5. It was trade on b5, trade on a8.
Bishop a8?
And
Or
bishop
rook
e3 was played. And h4 was not a move. So
Okay, okay, so h4 is a new move. And clearly both of them knew it. I get the word from the viewers that this is a correspondence game, actually. Okay, fine. It's quite interesting because often correspondence chess is ahead of modern theory. And I know for sure that many high-level players, they are taking the ideas from correspondence chess. There's even this separate database available to buy from ChessBase, this correspondence database. And I know that some serious people always update it, they're following it. Why is this? Because correspondence chess, the players are using very high-end computers to come up with new ideas. They're essentially top pro players. That's why having a very deep prep is essential. And very often we are seeing this, which maybe is a new move in the classical chess over the board. In correspondence chess, it's already like yesterday's news, right? Everybody knows this. Not always, but sometimes this happens. So if we can trust what our dear viewers are saying there, that correspondence chess already had one game here where king h8 was played. But does Winston even know that?
yeah.
That's a very good question.
I mean, it could be an idea. We were discussing that potentially there could be some f5 breaks, and king h8 looks logical. But the question is, there are so many continuations, and king h8 is like, in a way, slow one. It's a prophylactic move. Of course, it's a good move. But the question is right now for Vincent, what does he need in this position? Maybe he needs indeed some rook d3, some dynamic approach, taking that pawn. You never know.
So this is the game that was played in correspondence chess. That's the word we're getting here. Does it look very human to you? I don't know. I mean, I don't understand why would I play king h8 to include queen f3 on only, where was this once again? King h8, queen f3, bishop g4, queen g2, trade it and understand that the king belongs on h8. Okay, good luck picking this up. So, yeah, I think Keimer faces some very difficult decisions here, but let's move on. Let's continue to observe the games because I think that here the young German definitely wants to spend some time to make the right decision.
Absolutely. Let's go to the other game, maybe Bassem Amin against Yu Yangyi. We have not yet checked the game.
All right.
Okay, we still have...
Right. Yesterday, when asked, what do you expect from tomorrow's game, the Egyptian grandmaster said, I'm looking for a game. Right? Of course, he said that Yu Yangyi is incredibly strong player, actually the top seeded player here in the tournament. But I wouldn't be really surprised if this game finishes in a draw, because both of them are not really fighting for more, because if you would go to the overall rankings, as you can see, for Amin, if he wins, he can perhaps catch Erigaisi, but the difference is 3 points, and to expect that Erigaisi is going to lose with white, probably not. Jules Massar plays today, I believe, with the white color against Diak, which also could end in a draw. So for Bassem, fighting, going all in, so to speak, perhaps it's not really the best choice. While for his opponent, Yu Yangyi, he can't really climb any higher. He has 22.5 points. He already played yesterday a rather peaceful opening against Navarra, if not to say completely dry as desert. So I would not be really surprised if after this Italian game, they're going to trade everything. Bishop e6, bishop b6, trade the knights, trade the queens, trade the rooks. Deja vu like yesterday game for Yu Yangyi against Amin Bassem, a finish in a draw. That's why it doesn't really look very ambitious. But then again, I mean, I definitely understand them, right? They've had very, very long tournament, and it's difficult to motivate yourself when things are not going for you. You just sometimes want to finish the tournament as quickly as possible, move on. And then they have the World Cup, right?
Yeah.
Because all 8 of them are going directly to Azerbaijan to participate in the World Cup, which starts July 29, if I remember correctly. Most of them start with round 2, so they have several days to rest. But Jules Massard starts with round 1. So they have one more very exhausting tournament, very high-level tournament ahead of them. So that's why I think that here I would definitely not be surprised if this finishes in a rather uneventful draw.
I agree. I mean, I think that for Yu Yang-yi, the tournament finished after the round. It was, I guess, round number 4, the game against Vincent Keimer, where he was still fighting, he was still playing that game, but Vincent just overtook him and he won that game. And basically after it, immediately in the game against Lei Kwang Liam, after the rest day, he got rolled over and he said, okay, I'm finishing the
He
tournament.
suffered 2 losses in a row, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's 2 losses in a row. He had pretty good chances still in overall rankings. 2 losses, that's it, and that's why he played yesterday against Navarra. Fine, just, let's just finish this tournament and move on. So unfortunately, somebody in this great field has to finish in the last places. That's how it works, because if you invite 8 high-class grandmasters, somebody simply has to finish in the last place, no matter how well they play.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe let's go to the game Jules Massard against Bogdan Daniel Diak.
Yeah, I'll just very quickly scroll through the moves. Bishop c4, avoiding a Petrov. So the Egyptian grandmaster suspected there might be Petrov, so bishop c4 is a common way to avoid this. Now we switch to, what even is this? Some Vienna line? I'm not even sure. Bishop's opening something. Okay. now it's Italian game. Okay.
Now it's Italian.
With knight c3, yeah. Okay, everything disappears. Let's select another game, which is Jules Massard against Daniel Bogdan Diak.
Okay, so we have. Wait, what was this?
It's
It was Ruy Lopez.
Ruy Lopez, definitely.
With take on c6.
I'm just wondering, was it Ruy Lopez directly? No, it was Berlin variation declined, I think. So 2 more players who do not really, again, directly participate for fight of top 3, because top 3 already is pretty clear. Jules perhaps is slightly a little bit more motivated, because also yesterday he was looking for this big fight, and if you watched his interview after this grueling 7-hour game, where he managed to stand his ground against the Vietnamese grandmaster like Quang Liem, he very nicely explained his thought process, how he was looking for a big fight for black. He played Queen's Indian defense for the first time basically in his life. And it did not really work out for him. So I think that he is going to try. He definitely is going to try. Bishop c5. Right, the Berlin. Can I say infamous Berlin or it's famous Berlin? Like, what's the right way? Because for me it's infamous Berlin, but maybe somebody's going to disagree.
I'm not sure.
I'm not a big fan of the Berlin endgame, I'll tell you honestly. I mean, obviously, ever since the World Championship match in 2000, Kasparov against Kramnik, this has become a big thing.
Yeah.
Knight e4, d4, knight e6, takes, d takes, knight e5, queen takes. And the theory only starts here. Right after the opening, we have an endgame, and Kasparov did not succeed to crack through Kramnik's a very solid opening prep, and he didn't even score a single victory, which was unheard of at the time. And ever since, the Berlin variation has become a super, super popular weapon for black. But I mean, I don't like it, and I know quite a bit of players who also principally don't like it, and they just avoid it by playing d3, I mean, there's definitely going to be no endgame today.
No Berlin. Jules is saying no Berlin today, endgame. Okay, so we have bishop c5. And
Right, this is a trick, actually, because the pawn cannot be taken. Takes, knight e5 is queen d4. So this is something that white should be aware of.
And white is aware of it, so.
Yeah, I mean, he took on c6 to double the pawn structure, and here the theory has some continuations like knight c3, bishop e3, like knight e2, knight b3, knight c4. There's a lot of moves. So knight e2, knight e7. Another common move, because knight e7 maybe for the club level player feels strange. I mean, why would you want to retreat with the knight and block your bishop? But it's all about the structure, because black wants to play f6 to solidify the center. He wants to play maybe bishop d6, or f6 or bishop d6, and then play c5. to secure himself a very good hold of the center.
And knight is going to go to e6, knight f8, knight e6. Of course, after castle, but
Right. I mean, sometimes even before castle, but yeah, but knight f8, knight e6 is definitely a move. So castles, castles, knight c4, f6, knight h4, rook f7, very interesting order of the moves.
now knight is jumping.
Right. Now he play bishop e3, knight e6, takes, takes, knight e3, g6, g3. So white is dreaming about f4.
Maybe the dream comes true.
I can easily imagine this happening, yes. Actually, it's pretty interesting, right? So white plays g3, and he says, I'm not afraid of your bishop h3, because bishop h3 looks so logical. That's almost like a mate, right? I mean, you position the bishop on h3, there's some light score weaknesses, it feels very promising. But actually, this bishop on h3, it could become a problem. I mean, g4, queen f3, you could trap it.
Easily, yeah.
Easily, right? So I guess you already have to retreat. Maybe actually white enjoys having the rook on g1. I mean, think about ideas like g4, f4 at some point, maybe knight f5. And this rook on g3 could be doubled at some point. I mean, not queen, but the other rook goes to g1. So bishop h3 most likely is not going to follow.
Yeah, bishop h3 would help white to bring the rook to the g file in front of the king on g8. Of course, king h8 could be played, but okay, some dangerous idea could be there in the position. But normal move would be something like bishop e6.
I think that what Diak first needs to understand, unless this is still a prep, which I don't really believe it, he needs to understand what he's going to do after f4. Because very often, the typical response to f4, okay, let me just make some moves to prove my point. Let's say king g7, f4, and whatever. Let's say, I don't know, bishop e6. This is bad news for black. Why? Because the pawn on e5 is a weakness. I mean, I can trade rooks, I can trade queens, I can put my knight on f3, press this pawn, at some point knight c4. And it's a bit annoying that white has this nice pressure. So that's why after king g7, not king g7, but whatever move, some of the key ideas here might involve e takes, g takes, and doing some counter strike in the center with something like f5. You see attacking the knight and attacking the pawn on e4. So I think that that's what Diak needs to understand right now. What he's going to do against f4. And he plays a5.
Not doing anything about f4.
Okay, that's really deep. And if I play f4, I guess he wants to take, and I'll play f5. This is his idea. So that's why he didn't play bishop e6. Because let's say if he would play bishop e6, the most natural move, you play f4, you want to play f5, or f takes on e5, one of these two moves. Let's say you take, you play f5. You have to account for e takes on f5, whatever is happening here. Although, I guess black can still take on h4 and is pretty happy.
Yeah, I think also at some moment b4 could be an intermediate move, because that's why maybe this a5 was played, because...
Oh, here?
Yeah, at some moment b4.
That's a nice idea. Yeah, so to push away the knight.
And then?
Then play f4, take on f4, f5. This knight is now under attack, and now you take it. You see,
because now there is a fork.
Now there's a fork and whatever. Bishop f5, knight f5, g takes. This king is much, I guess, maybe it's too strong word, but weaker than the white king.
But rook g1, queen h5, all kind of the moves in the position.
That's right. And that's the reason why a5 actually deals with the b4 threat. And also, he keeps a close eye on white's f4. And yet, engines, at least, we are not seeing the engines, we see the bar. The bar doesn't like it.
The bar doesn't like it.
What could be the reason? What about I improve the idea? So once again, f4, take. G takes is f5. Rook takes on f4 is g5. Okay, maybe you can sacrifice the exchange, something like rook g4, but to gain the f5 square, but let's not talk about this for the moment. What about I improve the idea and I protect the knight on h4? What about I play queen e1? This is a move I could easily imagine happening, because queen e1, I protect the knight on h4, And sometimes in Sicilian Rossolimo, in typical structures, because this resembles Sicilian Rossolimo, you could play queen c3, bothering the knight on c5 in some lines. So again, if let's say black plays, what does he play? Some b6, typical Berlin move, f4, takes, and after f5, this knight is protected, and I can already play something else, like take or play e5. Does that make any sense?
It could be, of course, because you're improving on the f4 idea.
Also, queen g3 becomes
Yeah.
a move. Get closer to the king. No, I can easily imagine queen e1 here. But I'm fairly positive there's more than one move.
Absolutely.
Knight g2 feels a bit retreating move. I don't think that he wants to do that. Could be some rook g1 move. Could be some queen e2 slower move. I would predict queen e1.
Yeah, queen e1 looks very smart. Prophylactical move, preparational move, and I mean, I guess knight e to g2. You don't want to play this, right?
It just doesn't look right.
Yeah. Because
I mean, I think that the general logic is that, okay, f4 is a cool idea. We want to execute it. But I don't think I want to do this at the expense of something else. So the knight on e3 stands well. The knight on h4 is sort of one step away from the black king. And I want to keep these pieces there. So you are trying to also develop the pieces which are not yet developed. In this regard, queen move makes perfect sense, right? So something like queen d2, queen e1, queen e2, I'm not sure, queen e1 makes perfect sense here. Rook g1 maybe makes sense, but then again, after rook g1, are you really threatening to play f4, or do you need rook at f5?
wait a second. What happens after knight g4? Just king g7? Just king g7?
Again, king g7, king h8, queen f8.
Because the idea is to play f4 and to have a, to attack e5.
Looks strange, but maybe it works. I seem to recall this famous quote, which I asked last year to Vishy Anand when he was here with us, also in the commentary. And I said to the former world champion, Vishy, what about this, your quote? You once said, you don't care if it looks weird. If it works, it works. He laughed and he said, it's not even my quote. I mean, I took it from somewhere else. He was just the one to repeat it. I didn't know that. I thought Anand is the author of this quote, and I would always quote him as the one who had said it. And he had said himself that, no, it belongs to somebody else. I don't know, maybe... Okay, king g7. f4? Yeah, it looks a bit strange, but maybe it does work. What about I take? The same idea. These two knights are under attack. Doesn't look nice.
Yeah.
All right, we get a word that there's something happening in Keimer's game. We are going to go back to that. Also, Navarre against Kwang Lian, we haven't yet looked at for a moment. Let's start perhaps with Keimer. He is the leader of the rankings.
Let's go to the Vincent Keimer's game. So indeed, rook d3 was played actually.
Rook takes on d3. Queen e2, rook d8. Whoa. Wait, I don't understand this. Okay, so queen e2, rook d8, I understand. What's the idea of rook a8?
To take on c8?
There's no threat, rook c8, queen c8 is a move. What's even the idea of rook a8? It's a positional sacrifice. I mean, there's no immediate way how white wins back the pawn. It's just going for domination.
Maybe g4?
What?
g4 as idea?
Where g4? You mean here? What about the g4? What is? You mean you want to trap?
If bishop g4, queen d3? But then...
Maybe the idea is to avoid this bishop g4 in the first place, because then you might have some queen d3 ideas. Or take on d8 and queen takes on b5. Let me just show to you. Take, and queen goes here. All right. So rook a8 was played, but what more surprises me is the move b4.
It's completely different direction. Like you expect to be played something on the king side, and Vincent is just playing b4. I mean, the whole board is on fire right now. Like everything is
That's
basically.
the move I would not definitely expect. So my assumption, Angelica, is that Vincent is still in some sort of a prep. Maybe not exactly this particular position, but very similar, because you just don't play moves like these. I mean, you don't take the pawn on d3, rook d8, then play b4 to care for the pawn on b5, which doesn't really affect the game. It also opens bishop c4 move for white here right now. But maybe he just used some elimination method to cross out every move which makes no sense and which makes sense, and that's how he arrived at b4 and calculated it so deep and realized there's no immediate problem. It's a very surprising move to me.
This is very surprising, absolutely. And let's maybe make a step back and like try to think about other move for black. I mean, rook a8 was played, and here. What else could he do?
Okay, maybe at the end of the day, white is threatening to play bishop c2. Attack the rook, win the pawn on b5. And that's why Vincent just plays b4, so that this is not an issue. Okay, but taking into account there's all kinds of ideas here.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, what you were saying.
No, I was just wondering here. So bishop g4 is not working right now, but what if something else?
So elimination method. No sense, does not work, no sense,
King.
does not work, no sense. So what else is there? I think he just used elimination method. You know, I would definitely love to ask Keimer this. How do you come up with the move b4 even? I think he just crossed out all of these moves, because sometimes that's what I'm doing, although not in such a complicated position. Because let's say you are looking at a position like this one, or a similar position, you're thinking, oh, this is such a terrible, complex position, I don't know what to do here, etc. I'm so confused. But when you use the elimination method, you cross out moves physically. No, makes no sense, etc. You just realize, okay, listen, in this position, there's like 1.5 normal moves. And from there, you can already make your decision. All right,
Yeah.
so b4 is played, and also perhaps indeed this is resembling to the German player a certain line he maybe prepared, because he knew this line up to here, right? He played it so quickly. So he must know some positions here. Maybe white was playing the c3 in a different line. And that's where he knew this idea of b4.
Arjun now is thinking, he's trying to understand what he should do. This is total madness on the board.
And black has a pawn. For the moment, Eric Geisy should be out of the prep, because when he was playing the game against David Navarra, whichever round it was, then we also could not really understand how far the Indian Grandmaster's preparation goes. Here, I mean, it's got to stop at some point, right? And also, that was what was very interesting for me, because I would often ask to the players off the screen where exactly your preparation ended, and they would often say it was here, and from here I was on my own, etc. So at some point, of course, they have to play it themselves. All right, if you're a guy, so what you're doing here?
Big question.
This is a move. This is a move.
Queen of one, no, and
Yeah,
queen
but
of
trading
one.
queens makes no sense at all. I mean,
Yeah.
you're down a pawn, right? You got to use your piece activity. G4 does not work. That makes no sense at all. I mean, there's not a for what I'm talking about. To improve this idea of rook c8 so that the queen is not protecting it. maybe push away the rook. Rook, bishop c4. What about this move? On queen f3, I want to attack the pawn on f7. So let's
Maybe.
say you are going somewhere far away. There's bishop b5. There could be some positional move like knight f1 even. You know, to just play positional chess, like nothing happened. You have some squares. Queen on h3 is not very good. It's just a pawn, right? Just a pawn. Okay, maybe try to force matters with bishop e5. And how to protect this knight?
You know, there are also weaknesses in the black's position, like knight c5. Sometimes when you protect the knight on d2, of course, could be a move.
Right.
Okay, now actually,
Take here.
yeah.
I missed something, yeah? Oh,
A bit too much, yeah.
yeah, that's a mate. Okay, knight c5 is not a move. But even this position, let's say something like knight f3 or knight f1, you have better pieces. Bishop on b7 is sort of passive. I think that white simply has some sort of a positional compensation for the pawn. That's it. There's no immediate tactics. And that's why maybe Conor played this b4 confidently, that he checked there's no immediate tactics, he's not losing immediately, so why don't I just protect the pawn?
Yeah, indeed, could be a reason, of course. But still, like everything is just hanging. Everything is possible, and we see Arjun right now on the board trying to figure out what to play. He said himself in one of the interviews that he played very fast in that game against David Navarra. He played very fast in the games afterwards, and he's trying to rehabilitate and not to do a mistake again. After he won the Blitz tournament, he said, okay, I'll try to think more. I'll try to bring out the lesson out of these losses which he had, and yeah. We see he's spending time finally.
Arjun has had a couple of amazing past years because he skyrocketed to 2700 elo club very, very quickly. And then he has already made the first waves playing against the best players in the world, most notably in this Champions Chess Tour. And then after having some very good success, he started to experience some downfall last winter. Now he's slowly regaining the form. Of course, when you're playing actively, you have your ups and downs. It's completely normal. Recently, the Indian Grams have won the very strong Jaja Masters Open tournament. So, yeah, he is just gaining the momentum. He's still very, very young and one of the most bright stars of Indian chess.
And very, very impressive is that he was here 2 years ago with rating 2567. And when I was also doing research a little bit about his rating progress, I realized that out of 20 rating periods, he increased the rating in 17 times. So 17 out of 20, he was increasing.
Right.
So this is absolutely incredible. Right now, he's on the 2700 level, always coming up and down. And he played a move, rook e to a1.
Okay, I mean, that's a move I wouldn't have guessed. But in the end, nothing really dramatically changes. He protects the rook on a8 against some forced rook trades.
There could be some ideas, you
I
know.
don't even understand him, I will tell you honestly. Because, okay, he protects the rook on a8 against what? Against what? Against bishop g4? Against bishop b7? No, bishop b7, white is supposed to take on d8 anyway. It's a slightly mysterious move, but maybe it's just, you know, he improves the rook. Because the rook on e1 doesn't do anything. There's already a couple of pieces in front of the rook. And that's why he gives the rook on e1 a new role. And just in case protects the rook on a8. Okay, a very difficult move to make. The bar says it's about equal.
But if bishop b7, you can take on d3. Bishop b7, queen d3, bishop a8, queen c4, no?
So you can't take it,
So bishop a8, and there is some queen c4 ideas.
but there's also a queen sacrifice somewhere.
There's, I don't think it's working because
Yeah, queen
there's queen-
c4. Yeah, queen c4 with the idea to
Yes.
take it, here, threat. Maybe actually. But can I sacrifice for the sake of content?
can try, but the problem is I think queen d7 or something like this. And now, what do you play? Knight
It's
c5.
not super obvious from afar. Takes, knight b7. The queen might be trapped.
Knight,
I guess-
knight f8.
You give a check and escape, I guess, or h5
Yeah.
or whatever. So it does work. It's a cool idea, but it doesn't work.
Okay, so we have now Vincent at the board trying to think. I mean, like, it's absolutely incredible that we have this all the pieces around the white's king right now on the king side, and last two moves or even three moves were happening on the queen side. So first was rook a8, then b4, and now rook e to a1. So like, what is exactly going on in this game? That's the huge question.
It's also quite difficult for white because he needs to be super careful not to miss any bishop g4, knight f4 ideas. Because you make one careless move, that's it, your king side just falls apart. So that's why every move he's making needs to be double checked if there's no direct threats against his king.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump to the other most important game of the round, other central game. David Navarra playing against Le Quang Liam. That's the game we haven't seen for a while.
Indeed. And we can say confidently that Le Quang Liam went for the short castle. He didn't stop the a5. So we left it around here. Not much has happened.
That's what we predicted. So
Yeah.
Navarra decided not to push a6 just yet. So we're discussing a6, b6 could be a move here. Not sure. Castle, rook c8 makes sense. d3, rook d8 makes sense. These are easy moves. Give the rook slightly better place. Bishop e3. Maybe that's why Navarra keeps the pawn on a5. Because he awaits black to play b6 at some point. I mean, the pawn on c5 could become a target. Let's say you play b6. I take it. And now I have the open file. My rook is not staring at the pawn on a6. And think about ideas like queen b5, like rook a6 combined with some pretty good bishops here. Some bishop f4 ideas could be annoying to bother the black rook on b8 at some point. This must be his idea.
Yeah, indeed. Trying to put more and more pressure on the pawns on the queen side. And using the fact of this two bishop advantage, the position in the center is open, so there are no pawns there. The bishops look very nice for white.
Right.
So that's what David Navarra is trying to claim, right? This two bishop advantage, and I think it could be successful.
Also, black needs to make a big choice. Is he going to play knight e5 or knight e4? Because black sort of controls these two squares with the knights. But which one do you use? If you play knight e4, okay, knight e4 already is played, so I just wanted to show my idea. If you play knight e4, you maybe open the bishop too much. There could be moves like, since the queen is doing nothing, there could be moves like queen a4, trade the queens. Let's say black makes some random move like, okay, whatever, h6. Now I could trade here. I could choose the right moment to trade here. And maybe wherever I put the knight, I'm not really sure, somehow capitalize on this very strong bishop on g2. Because these pawns are targets. Something along the way I think that Navarra might have planned. But then again, I mean, if you look at this position, the knight on d4, does it really bother you?
No, I think that the key square is rather d5, you know, to block that long bishop. And that's why maybe Le Quang Liam is trying to get for it. Yeah, indeed, like e2 is protected.
But knight e5 was another move.
Yeah. maybe what he wanted, he didn't want to take with a pawn on d5.
I don't know.
That's why he played knight b4.
Takes. Looks pretty interesting to me. You know, some knight b4 ideas. Bishop f6 comes into play. Either way, it did not happen. Knight b4 was played. I guess he wants to put the knight on d5, be solid.
He might even want to put another knight, you know, because that knight on b4 is not going to be like asked by any a pawn, because a pawn is already on a5. Maybe knight even f to d5 to have this knight c2
I
fork.
think that white now can ask black some direct questions. I see a couple of ideas here immediately. The first idea I wanted to suggest is queen b5.
But you have to be careful about the knight c2, right?
I'm not concerned about it.
Yes?
Because because after knight c2, let's say whatever, rook a4, knight e3, f takes on e3, I don't think I'm really concerned about it, because the bishop on e3 doesn't do much unless you somehow cause me some big problems here. Could be, yeah. But I don't think in general I'm very, very afraid of this knight c2 fork. Of course, I can just include rook c1. But anyway, the big idea of this queen b5,
Yeah.
I want to get to this pawn. Let's say you protect it, I could take it. I can easily see here some ideas. Attacking these two pawns, a6, knight a3, knight c4, that's a big weakness. Let's say you do your knight c2. And I put my knight on c4. Let me just make a random move here. That's sort of my point. So I have the beautiful knight, I have the beautiful bishop. Your bishop is not very good, although black is still pretty solid.
Yes, but there was
Something more
knight,
concrete,
because
yeah?
knight c2 is not working, your knight is on a3.
That I missed.
No, but okay, this is idea, but
Okay, maybe
of course
it's
a
through d5.
different move order.
Maybe through d5. Of course, brilliant point. That is hanging. But anyway, you know, I have a second idea here, and that is to play a6 immediately, which could be also an idea. And if you take with a knight, I could at some point either take on b7 and then take on a6 and somehow claim a better pawn structure. Because let's say somehow this happens, not the most ideal scenario. You see that black is left here with a weak pawn. Of course, I just blundered the bishop on e7, but I just want to show the structure. So, and if after a6, b6 is played, then we can always think about most like bishop b7, knight b5, and this pawn on a7 is under attack. You know, that's why this knight b4 suddenly opens some possibilities for Navarra. For example, the same idea if I could go back to a6. After knight a6, who says you have to even take on b7?
You can take on a6.
You want to sacrifice the exchange. I thought, why don't I just play for a positional sacrifice? You know, if you go back, I just take the pawn on a7. But I just need the next move. The next move is pretty important, something like queen b5, rook c7, let's say takes, knight b5, could be. I mean, I could easily imagine this being under Navarro's radar and somehow try to increase the power of his Lascaux bishop.
Absolutely, that's in the mind, because you know in these lines with a6, b6, and bishop b7 lines, if like there could be an opportunity always for knight to jump like to a5, but right now since knight is already on b4, there is no way like knight could jump there and back, but it would be the loss of 2 tempos, so it's like, or it doesn't make much sense.
Some very interesting opportunities here for Navarra. He has plenty of time. The opening, I think, is a success for the Czech Grandmaster because he got exactly the position he wanted. His opponent is very strong in opening theory, being a coach in the Webster University. There's a question in the chat, why not b takes an a6? I haven't even looked at this move yet. I mean, maybe white just sacrifices this pawn and tries to claim a great compensation because your pawn structure is not ideal. Again, I mean, it could be several ordered moves for white to get there. So this a6 is always there. That's what I'm saying, right? Maybe not immediately a6. Maybe let's say start with rook c1. let's say rook c1, deal with this knight c2 idea, and then black does whatever he does. Let's say he puts the knight on d5. I could retreat with the bishop. You put the bishop here. Then at some point I play this a6. That's what I'm saying, right? So this a6 is definitely under his radar. He's looking at this. Or maybe somehow queen b5. Try to get to these pawns, because once again, if this forces a trade, the pawn in a7 is a weakness, and after knight a3, knight c4, you have some very nice squares to attend.
Could he play knight b5 immediately in this position?
Probably, yeah. Attack the pawn, right?
And if a6, then we are going to have this weakness, yeah?
Just maybe go back. Knight a4, knight here. It definitely makes sense. The trick is that Navarro here has several tempting moves. It's more about feeling the soul of the position. He has rook c1, he has queen b5, he has direct a6. a6 perhaps is slightly rushed. Maybe he can also toy with the ideas to play d4 somehow, somewhere, like rook d1, rook d1, d4. But then again, knight c2 is something you have to constantly evaluate. You know, tough to say, really, at this point. All right. This is going to be a slow game. Let's move
Just
on.
a quick question, knight
Yep.
a4. Knight a4 attacking the pawn on... or knight e4. Probably it's...
I'm not even sure you're attacking the pawn on c5.
Yeah, because there is b6, right?
Right. And if you don't attack the pawn on c5, why do you play knight
Yeah.
a4? Could be something like knight e5. Knight e5, knight c5, knight c5. Intermezzo
Yeah.
move, knight e3 is always there, so I guess bishop c5, b6.
Yeah, knight on b4 is protected. Yeah.
Okay, it does work, really.
Yeah, tactically it doesn't work. Okay. So let's go to the game of who do we haven't checked for a long time. I think Bassem Amin against Yu Yangyi.
Let's do that. All right, the game we predicted might end peacefully after the opening, because it seemed that that's where it's heading. Here, the Egyptian grandmaster decided to counter-strike in the center of d4. Take, here, bishop a5. Okay, now suddenly things spice it up a little bit, because white won the battle for the center, but black is trying to get to the pawn on e4. Eliminate the knight, take on e4, and strengthen it with e5. So b4 makes perfect sense. Bishop b6, rook a1, the rook on a2 has nothing to do. Knight e6, takes, the pawn on a3 could become a weakness, so you play a4, queen c7, and that's the position we have here.
The question is, what is going to be the pawn on a4? Will it be... I mean, it could easily be a weakness, right? Like,
Actually, incidentally, my apologies, Bassem already had a similar game, similar structure against Keimer. It was a rapid game. They had, I think they had the structure, the pawn was not on b7 on e6, and in the end he did play a5. But okay, it was completely different opening. I'm just saying that this is not the first time I'm seeing from the Egyptian grandmaster in the tournament having the pawns on a4, b4 with the a file open for the black rook. I guess you press the pawn on d6 somehow. That's a weakness. You want to come and say hello.
queen d2.
So black could play rook d8. The rook on a8 maybe doesn't do much. Think about d5.
Now, actually, there could be some b5 or a5, something.
e5, a5. I'm not sure. Maybe d5 has to be met by e5. Gain some pawn advantage to the king side. But having no bishops on the board, it's going to be very difficult for either of the players to build up any attack. Okay, maybe not queen d2. Maybe it's something like knight e4, because the knight on f3 doesn't know much. You're thinking about knight f5 ideas. So let's say again, rook d8 cannot be a mistake. d5 is in the cards. Let's say take it here, queen d4, d5,
E5?
e5, here, a4, and guess white is pushing. No, Bar says black is better. Go figure. I thought white is pushing because of some
Yeah,
pawn
it
advantage of the king side, but
looks like a better pawn structure, but
maybe not.
engine knows some secrets.
Right. I mean, again, we are not using any engines. Sometimes I'm wondering, Angelica, why we even have on this evaluation bar.
Yeah, that's also a good
It just
question. I
messes up
don't.
with us. I think I'm
yeah.
going to switch it off.
Yeah, don't need
All
it.
right. So, now it's easier.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always in favor of.
It's been like that since day one.
Yes. Okay, so Jules Messart against Bogdan Daniel Diak. We haven't checked for a long time. We're discussing actually this bishop h3 move, which we see already happened on the board. And we are discussing that it's maybe even helping white because white's rook wants to be on g1, wants to be in front of the king on g8.
But I'm very proud of myself because what was the move played by Musar?
Queen e1.
Queen e1.
Very nice.
Right, Queen e1, improving the threat of playing a 4. Bishop h3, now played, rook g1. Now, g4, rook g3 is a big threat.
Yeah. So now the question is, what are you doing with the bishop? Are you retreating?
But then f4 becomes a problem. So let's say you play bishop e6, f4. Takes. f5 is not a problem.
Yeah.
Now look at this. So this rook stands exactly where it wants. Perhaps knight e6. But what about your bishop here?
g4, knight f4, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, perhaps at some point black is in time to protect his bishop, but I mean, one misstep and it's gone. Think about, I don't know, put the knight on e2,
Magically.
magically, knight h4, e2, trade it and take on h3. But there's no easy way to do this, and if I go, how do you even do this? Here, it's simply too long.
Yeah, it's simply too much, and also pawn on g4 might fall after h5 and everything, so...
Okay, so maybe knight e6 is a move, but it also stops at 4, or wait. Does it stop at 4?
Actually, f4 is possible, no? If you take, there is queen g3.
Exactly.
Ah, but, you know, knight e2, queen h3.
Now this should be great for white.
Yes.
You have two minor pieces for the rook and a pawn, but you have a strong attack. g5 defends nothing.
Yeah.
That's a pin.
Queen d6.
It's the only move which doesn't lose on the spot, and yet it
Knight
does.
c4, yeah.
So, okay, you simply can't do that. Actually, knight e6 doesn't even stop at 4. And if it doesn't stop at 4, then you don't play knight e6 at all. I don't easily see the moves for black here. Okay, maybe there's something like queen d4. Attack the pawn on b2, be brave. But if you do this, you need
But
to account for
what
this
about
g4.
g4? Yeah, you have to
Exactly.
always look at g4 and f4. Those are two major ideas for white.
And there's all kinds of threats. Let's say after knight e6, you also need to watch out for knight f5. You need to watch out for rook g3, knight f4, knight f3, knight g1. So queen d4, okay, it's nice, right? I mean, protecting, wait, not knight e6, but attacking the pawn on b2. But if white plays g4, how do you protect it?
And that's a huge question, actually, for Bogdan Daniel in this position, because he's not threatening much. I mean, he's not threatening almost anything, but white is in charge here. White wants to play g4. White wants to play f4. You have to play a move which is, in a way, stopping both ideas, which is difficult, to say the least. Pretty tough, yeah.
Maybe there's some dramatic moves like f5 I'm not sure they're playing like this in these positions.
Yeah. Looks like maybe too dramatic.
I don't know. I mean, it does make sense to counter-strike at the king side because bishop h3 demands a continuation. But then again, I mean, you weaken the e5 square, e5 pawn, to be more precise.
Yeah.
And if I just play f3,
Cannot you just trade on f5 and play g4?
whoa,
You know, and if
you're dropping the knight here, by the way.
ah
don't
yeah,
forget.
yeah, that's
But wait,
right.
wait. Okay, I'm seeing ghosts. I thought I saw some tricks here. Oh wait, the queen is. Oh, just ignore me.
Yes.
It's not happening. And playing something like f4 with the king on h1 looks so dangerous because now bishop h3 is a very strong piece. So e takes d5 unless there's direct continuation is not going to happen.
Directly f4.
Then I start to have some
Questions.
questions with the king's safety. Maybe f.
Okay, f3, f3.
I think this is what Diak is thinking about right now because I just cannot picture him making any other move. I mean, there's definitely some other moves, but it makes sense to counter-strike. But again, this f5 is such a responsible move, and it's not very characteristic of this pawn structure. That's what I'm saying. I mean, black usually doesn't play there.
Usually does not, but maybe in this concrete position it works, and that's what Romanian Grandmaster right now is trying to figure out, trying to calculate the continuation here. I mean,
There could be queen d4 now. There could be f takes, open the file. You need to again assess the position properly. Maybe takes, and somehow use the open file. What about takes?
D.
And d takes, you
yeah.
also need to assess this position. Because now g4 again is
Yeah.
a move on queen. Who knows, right? So very big strategic decision for Diak here to make.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the end of the day, I mean, if he doesn't play f5, what does he play? Knight a6, f4. f4, g4, these are big threats. Queen d4 doesn't really help. No, I think he might play 5, actually.
Yeah. Looks like.
Or just retreat with the bishop. But then again, he
but
retreats with
retreat
the, why
there
do
is
you go
f4,
bishop
yeah?
h3?
Yeah.
It's like acknowledging I was wrong. I mean, I play bishop h3, now I'm going back. f4, f5, g4.
I mean, normally, like when you play such move as bishop h3, you prepare already the next move because you know response most likely will be rook g1. Rook g1 with a threat of g4, so you have to prepare the move. And actually, as I see, he played very quickly bishop h3. It was played very quickly, almost instantly. And now he's taking time.
All right. Do we have more moves in any of the games?
Not really.
Speaking
but,
about Navarra, I see he played queen b5. There's no moves in
okay.
Kamer's game.
Only queen b5 was played.
Only queen b5.
Maybe we could discuss this position and would be a perfect moment for a break for us because not much is happening for now.
That's what I'm thinking about, indeed. That's what I'm thinking about. So let's make a break. Because right now we have reached this moment when nothing dramatic is happening. The pace of the games has significantly slowed down. The players are out of their prep, choosing big decisions. So I see the battle in all 4 games. Of course, we are more interested in the games of Navarra against the Quang Liem and the guys against Vincent Kamer because these are the fights for the championship title here in the GMT. But I think that also Jules Massard wants to remind everybody he can still play here very good chess, and he's doing pretty well. And of course, also the Egyptian Grandmaster, the good doctor Amin Bassem, is looking to finish the tournament on a positive note. That's why they are going to definitely try to win the game with the white color. So let's make a short break, and I think in the break, Angelika, you have something to show.
Absolutely. So we still have the Beauty Awards ongoing in the open tournaments. We had yesterday the round number 8, and we have some interviews prepared for you with the winners of the Beauty Awards of the amateur tournament, main tournament, and master tournament. So we are going to show you one of the interviews. It was actually the last round. ATO and HTO was submitting the games because today they're having right now the final round. But MTO is still going to submit today, so you still can vote at the end of the stream or in the end of the day. So I would offer we're doing a break and watching one of the interviews.
And you had record submissions yesterday, right?
Yeah, right. Yesterday we had like, I don't remember overall, but from the MTO it was like 6 or 7 games, and I had to pre-select the games for election basically, and I had actually given 2 prizes because the first prize got the Rattenwell, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember against who he won yesterday, but he won by the votes, and there was a second game by Samadov, I think he's international master, and he was also for the interview here in the morning. And his game was also brilliant. There was some sacrifices, huge attack, so I decided they deserve for sure 2 prizes.
Enjoy the recorded interview. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back shortly.
We are back with the Beauty Awards of the round number 8. I'm having here right now the players who had played the most beautiful game in the round 8 of the HTO main tournament here in Biel Chess Festival. I have here with me Dominik Wiesmann and Hans-Georg Kleinhans, and they are going to show us something from inside from their games. Tell us, it was an interesting game, not so long, but it was still something. Maybe you could share something from the game.
Yeah, sure. So maybe what was interesting is that I had the same game until move 7, and it was also against a German player. So at the beginning we talked a little bit, and I asked him if he was from Köln as well, because my opponent from there. So I was thinking maybe we'll know a little bit what kind of opening I was playing. But I think we can jump to probably here. So it's also a system which is recommended by Silecki.
You have Chessable course.
He has
Chessable and the book. Yeah.
And the book.
Yeah.
And I am working with Ganguly.
Oh.
Yeah. And what I like in Surya, because I tried a different kind of chess-based course, but it's really verbalizing very well and telling that because now after Bishop G2, I take, and a little bit of difficulty. White would like to take back with a knight, but as long as the knight is not on c6, it's not so good, because then I can just play e5 and I win time. And if you take with a queen, I just play knight c6, and again I'm winning a tempo. So the most logical continuation is to castle, and here come h6. And this is a good waiting move, because now he cannot go like bishop g5, and he has still the issue that he cannot take with either the knight or the queen. So I think 2 options here is probably bishop f4, 1, and b3 was played in the game in order to play bishop b2 and then to take on
Well, on bishop f4, I feared some g5 or knight h5 ideas, so I decided to play this setup, which also appears often in Silecki's repertoire.
Okay.
But I didn't know the exact position, because
on this one I would go like e6 as well.
Yeah.
And then
But now you can take, yes?
Yeah, you can take, but then come to g5.
Yeah. With a knight, no?
Yeah, with a knight, yeah. But then this move here. And now if he goes here, this is a continuation that...
Yes.
With, I think, a good position. And if he goes back after g5...
Then there is
then
e4.
I can go e5.
E5, yes.
Yeah. But it's probably quite dynamic as well. So I went e6, bishop b2, bishop f5, and that was my game I had like 2 rounds before.
And I didn't know this game because only the first 3 rounds were published in chess results. And so I didn't prepare the
And
opening.
my opponent went for this move
How did finish that game which you played?
in a draw.
In a draw.
Because I think it's much less dynamic than taking back with a knight. Right? And here he went queen take. And here you
Okay.
can both castling or playing a knight c6 first.
But Hans-Georg played knight d4.
Yeah, but knight d4 I think it's more dynamic
Yes,
on
yes.
both sides. I mean, it's, so now I went e5. It needs to go back because, like here, I would just play knight c6 and then a6 probably. So back. So now I need to push again because it's attacked twice, and then he came back. Yeah.
But it's dangerous to play this way for white if your opponent is prepared and you aren't. So
Yes.
Yeah.
that was a bad practical decision, I think.
So castling, and now came c4. And here I went rook e8 to protect against this one. And if he takes, I can probably take with a queen, but then I can take with a knight. Probably also good. But I think it would be better to take now because he went e3.
Yes, sure.
And I think that's a
Also-
little bit a mistake because now I can go bishop g4. And I'm taking control of the d1 square. So he went queen c2. And here I thought about 2 moves only. Because of course I can take, but it's probably not so good. Well, it's good, but developing the knight was more important, I believe.
Yes,
And,
yes.
and then I can go in a6 or in d7.
You need to bring more forces, more pieces.
Yes. So I thought this one is. When I don't know, I prefer to go toward the center normally. So he went knight c3. No, he took on d5 first.
Yeah.
So knight take d5. Because this pawn, he can never take it.
What would you play? So if bishop e4, then
If bishop e4 now, I have this move here.
yeah, and if bishop
And-
a7, then
Yeah,
the
yeah.
bishop is gone. Yeah. Okay.
So knight c3. I took on c3. Queen takes c3. And now I went back. In order also to prevent any idea with, on g7. Rook a c1. And I think he missed this move here.
Yeah, I totally missed it.
I think it's
I
difficult
was only
because-
thinking about plans with knight
Yeah.
e5, which doesn't work, but I missed this move.
It's sometimes difficult when you have a piece and you go back and then another one come and take place. And heading into d3. That was also the idea of rook e8. Rook c2. And now knight d3. And here, that was here a mistake. Probably h3 is better.
Yeah.
Try to chase this one away.
That was already some kind of desperation because I wanted to have counterplay,
Because
but
then e3 will be weak. And
Yes.
it will
creates
fall.
too many
So
weaknesses.
this is.
Yeah.
And here, my first idea was this move here. Honestly, I was a little bit afraid first of this one, but nothing happened. I can just take, and it takes.
And
but
you
I
take the
here.
bishop. Yeah.
And you
But
keep a
then-
piece.
What was more difficult was this move here, because this one is still
Just new variation.
it's still hanging, right? And then I thought that I can play now rook here, like here, and then maybe here it takes. But I wasn't too sure because if I take now, he will take back. But if I cannot really take because this one will hang as well in the end, right? So I stopped calculating at this moment. And I thought with rook c8, I'm getting like a good advantage. So he went queen d2. I took queen take. And here the best, I went the night before, but more precise is just to take here. Because in the end, I always have the knight e1. So if he goes like this, I can also just like take here. And he cannot take with a rook, because I have the knight, sorry. I have knight e1. So it would have been more precise. But I went knight b4, queen d2, and now I took here on f3. Bishop take. And here that's probably the last mistake, is a3. Because I can now prevent the bishop. And he's really weak on the white squares. So we took here. Bishop h3. Now rook c1.
That's also a mistake, I think.
Yeah, maybe better here. But
F2 would be better, but I think in the long term it's lost.
And now queen e7, so I attack
Double
both
attack.
here. Yeah. So the only way to protect both is to go here, but then, sorry, knight c2. But then the rook is not playing anymore, and after queen e4. So now the queen cannot move away from the second line. Bishop d4, and now rook c8.
Yeah.
And nothing can move anymore. Yeah.
And here you resigned. Yeah.
Yeah, resigned, yes.
But it's difficult to suggest a move. I
Yes,
guess,
yes,
for
of course.
white,
Because bishop before big threat and.
yeah. So I was
Too many
lucky. I
things.
went into my preparation.
Yeah.
So if you knew the game he played before, maybe you would prepare it differently.
I would have prepared a little bit more, yes.
So Val, is it your first time in Biel or have you played here
It's
before?
my 22nd time in Biel.
22nd?
Yeah.
Oh my
I
God.
started already in 1976 at a big interzonal, which was taking place in Biel.
And how do you enjoy here?
Well, a lot.
A lot,
Else I wouldn't come back every year when
Every year.
have the time.
Oh my God. And for you?
I don't know how many. I probably played like 6, 7 times. Yeah. A few times in the master tournament as well.
Wow.
But I'm back now. I play a little bit more chess again. And,
So now you're back
and
to
I live
Biel.
here in Biel, so I will be
Okay.
probably here next year.
Okay. So wish you good luck. Today's the final round, right? You have the round number 9. Wish you good luck. And
Thank you.
here is a prize for you for the best game.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.